I am the Decay Echo, and this is your invitation to witness the unfolding of a narrative that refuses to fade into the silence of oblivion, a narrative as eternal as the whispers of decay. Let the journey begin, and may your curiosity be as relentless as the march of time. Now, traveler, let's venture onward to discover myths, legends, facts, and forgotten history.
Welcome to the cold, the crooked, and the concealed, an unsettling excavation of obscured truths and buried legacies. From an ice age that chilled empires, to a rogue American state lost to time, from a market scheme wrapped in deceit to the veiled warriors history tried to forget, this episode pulls back the frostbitten curtain on the shadows history left behind. Time to open the crypt. The world didn't freeze in an instant, but it shivered, slowly, into silence. In this opening segment, we journey back to the late antique Little Ice Age, a chilling period from roughly 536 to 660 CE when the sun dimmed, the skies darkened, and civilizations trembled beneath falling ash and failing crops. Volcanic eruptions cloaked the atmosphere, temperatures plummeted, and famine whispered through once thriving empires. What followed wasn't just a shift in climate, it was a domino effect of collapse, despair, and reinvention. From the Byzantine Empire to the fading remnants of Rome, history took a dark and frigid turn. Welcome to the winter history tried to bury. The late antique Little Ice Age, Laelia, was a long-lasting northern hemispheric cooling period in the 6th and 7th centuries AD, during the period known as Late Antiquity. The period coincides with three large volcanic eruptions in 535 to 536, 539 to 540 and 547. The volcanic winter of 536 was the early phenomenon of the century-long global temperature decline. One study suggested a global cooling of 2 degrees Celsius (3.6 degrees Fahrenheit). The period contributed to the decline of the Roman Empire and influenced the second wave migration period, primarily of the early Slavs. The existence of a cooling period was proposed as a theory in 2015, and subsequently confirmed as the period from AD 536 to about 660. Volcanic eruptions, meteorites striking the Earth's surface, and comet fragments exploding in the upper atmosphere have been proposed for the climatic cooling in 536 and afterwards. A problem is that no impact crater for a meteorite has been found, even though the land area and sea beds have been well surveyed for evidence. A comet fragment half a kilometer in size exploding in the atmosphere could cause a plume of debris on the Earth and create conditions for atmospheric cooling. Most evidence, however, points to volcanic eruptions occurring in 536, 540, and possibly 547, although the location of the volcano or volcanoes has not been determined. Locations such as Teverver in Papua New Guinea, Ilopango in El Salvador, and Krakatoa in Indonesia have been proposed. Investigations in 2018 analyzed ice cores from glaciers in Switzerland and matched glass particles in the cores with volcanic rocks from Iceland, making the island nation a likely candidate for the source of the 536 eruption, although North America is also a possible location. Evidence suggests that Ilopango in El Salvador was the source of the 539/540 eruption. Bipolar ice core investigations suggested that this eruption occurred in the tropics, and tree ring investigations near Ilopango found evidence of an eruption possibly in 540. However, a more recent study, examining other evidence, dated the eruption of Ilopango to 431, so the issue remains unresolved. The eruption, whatever its location, put more aerosols into the atmosphere than the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora, which caused the year without a summer. Another eruption, location unknown, occurred in 547. Additional evidence comes from a temperature reconstruction from the Euro-Med-2K working group of the International Pages, Past Global Changes, project that used new tree ring measurements from the Altai Mountains, which closely matches the temperatures in the Alps in the last 2 centuries. The impact of the volcanic eruptions was the phenomenon known as volcanic winter. In the volcanic winter of 536, summer temperatures fell by as much as 2.5 degrees Celsius, 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit, below normal in Europe. Normal is considered by scientists to be the average temperatures of the 1961 to 1990 period. The lingering impact of the volcanic winter of 536 was augmented in 539 to 540, when the second volcanic eruption caused summer temperatures to decline as much as 2.7 degrees Celsius, 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit, below normal in Europe. While the volcanic eruptions began the freeze, researchers think that increased ocean ice cover, feedback to the effects of the volcanoes, coupled with an exceptional minimum of solar activity in the 600s, reinforced and extended the cooling. Here are the following impact this event is said to have had on the following area. Arabia. According to research by a team from the Swiss Federal Research Institute at Bermensdorf, the fall in temperatures led to the Arabian Peninsula experiencing a dramatic increase in fertility. The boost of food supply contributed to the Arab expansion beyond the peninsula in the Islamic conquests. The cooling period also led to increased strain on the Eastern Roman Empire and the Sassanid Empire, which helped the Muslim conquest of the Levant, the Muslim conquest of Egypt and the Muslim conquest of Persia. According to research done by Israeli scientists, in 540, the size of the population of the city of Alusa, in the Negev desert, and the amount of garbage that it generated started to shrink greatly. Alusa housed tens of thousands of people during its height. The major decline took place around the mid-6th century, about a century before the Islamic conquest. One possible explanation for the crisis was the late antique Little Ice Age. Europe. The cooling period likely devastated northern Europe, leading to as many as half of the population in, for example, Scandinavia perishing, and has been credited as being the real precedent to the concept in Norse mythology referred to as Fimbulwinter. Mediterranean region. The cooling period coincided with the plague of Justinian, which began in 541, though the connection between the plague and the volcanoes still remains tenuous. The cooling period contributed to the migrations of the Lombards and the Slavs into Roman territory in Italy and the Balkans. According to 2024 research, major plagues that significantly impacted the remnants of the Roman Empire, during the late Antique Ice Age, are strongly linked to cooler and drier climate conditions, indicating that colder weather may have contributed to the spread of these diseases during that time. It is thought climate stress interacted with social and biological variables, such as food availability, rodent populations, and human migration, making populations more susceptible to disease. On the other hand, Haggai Olshanetsky and Lev Kosines argue that the plague and Lalia had a limited impact, as various archaeological evidence indicates there was no demographic or economic decline in the 6th century Eastern Mediterranean. Far East. It may have caused political upheavals in China. Tucked away in the mistier margins of early American history lies a tale of ambition, rebellion, and forgotten borders, the story of the state of Franklin. In the chaotic aftermath of the Revolutionary War, a breakaway region in what is now eastern Tennessee tried to carve itself into the fabric of the young United States. Armed with vision but lacking recognition, Franklin was a ghost state in the making, governed, defended, and ultimately abandoned. This is the tale of the state that almost was, and the shadows it left behind. North Carolina, struggling with war debts, aren't you all after a major revolution, decided to hand over its western lands to the federal government in 1784. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, the settlers living out there weren't exactly thrilled about being handed off like a used saddle. They were dealing with Native American conflicts, had minimal protection, and basically felt abandoned. Can't really blame them. The situation quickly reached a boiling point. These frontier folks, hardy and independent as they were, did what any self-respecting Americans of the time would do: they decided to start their own state. Representatives from Washington, Sullivan, and Greene counties got together in Jonesboro on August 23, 1784, and essentially said, "We'll do it ourselves." They named their new state Franklin, hoping to butter up Benjamin Franklin himself. Spoiler alert, Ben was flattered but politely declined to get involved, writing a diplomatic letter explaining that he wasn't quite familiar enough with the situation to throw his weight behind it. The whole Franklin experiment was led by John Sevier, a charismatic Revolutionary War hero who became their governor. Think of him as a frontier version of George Washington, well-respected, militarily accomplished, and politically savvy. In March 1785, the First Franklin Assembly got down to business, creating 4 new counties and setting up everything a proper state needs. They drafted what they called the Holston Constitution, basically copying North Carolina's homework but making it their own. The government structure was pretty straightforward: 1 legislative chamber, because who needs the complexity of 2, and a relatively weak executive branch. They set up courts, created a tax system, and, here's where it gets interesting, often had to accept things like deer skins and other goods instead of money for tax payments. Hard currency was about as rare as a quiet day on the frontier. Speaking of money problems, they tried to establish their own currency, but that went about as well as you'd expect for a state nobody officially recognized. They even had plans drawn up for a state flag, though that never made it past the planning stage. You've got to admire their optimism, though. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Franklin actually had a decent shot at becoming America's 14th state. In May 1785, they petitioned Congress, and they didn't do too badly. 7 states supported them. The problem? Under the Articles of Confederation, they needed 9. Talk about a close call. They even tried rebranding from Franklin, Land of the Free, to Franklin, hoping that flattering old Ben might help their cause. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Meanwhile, North Carolina had second thoughts about giving up its territory and basically said, "Just kidding, we want it back." This led to a pretty bizarre situation where you had 2 governments trying to run the same piece of land. Imagine having 2 different court systems, 2 tax collectors, and 2 sets of laws. It was about as messy as you'd expect. Some folks paid taxes to Franklin, others to North Carolina, and the clever ones probably managed to avoid paying either. The Franklinites, yes, that's what they called themselves, faced challenges from all sides. They were constantly negotiating, and sometimes fighting, with Cherokee tribes over land. In June 1785, John Sevier tried to smooth things over at Dumpling Creek, hoping to secure more land south of the French Broad River. But these negotiations were about as stable as a house of cards in a windstorm. The internal divisions were just as troublesome. Some residents stayed loyal to North Carolina, leading to some awkward neighborhood dynamics, to say the least. These tensions eventually boiled over in what they called the Battle of Franklin, in 1788. Though it was more like a frontier scuffle than a real battle, this clash between Governor John Sevier and North Carolina loyalist John Tipton symbolized the deeper rifts in the community. The economy of Franklin was, well, let's say, creative. Without much hard currency floating around, they had to get innovative. Bartering was the name of the game. Everything from corn to animal skins could be used to pay taxes or settle debts. Their attempt at creating their own currency went about as well as you'd expect for a state nobody officially recognized. In what might be the most eyebrow-raising chapter of this whole saga, Franklin even tried to cozy up to Spain when things got tough. Yes, you heard that right, Spain. They figured if the United States wouldn't recognize them, maybe the Spanish would be interested in a little frontier friendship. This diplomatic dalliance didn't exactly endear them to the folks in Philadelphia, and ultimately, like most long-distance relationships, it didn't work out. By 1788, even the most die-hard Franklinites were getting tired of the whole situation. The final straw came during that infamous Battle of Franklin we mentioned earlier. When John Sevier got himself arrested by North Carolina authorities, though he was quickly released, the writing was on the wall. North Carolina, playing it smart, offered to waive all those pesky back taxes if Franklin would come back to the fold. Suddenly, reunification didn't sound so bad anymore. The experiment officially ended in February 1789, when Sevier and other Franklin leaders took their oath of allegiance to North Carolina. It was less of a dramatic ending and more of a quiet acknowledgement that sometimes, even the most ambitious dreams need a reality check. But here's the thing about Franklin: while it failed as a state, its legacy is pretty remarkable. Many of the issues they grappled with, like how to admit new states and balance local versus federal power, helped shape Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution. And get this, John Sevier, Franklin's almost governor, went on to become the first governor of Tennessee when it became a state in 1796. Talk about failing upward. Those 4 years of independence helped shape the region's identity in ways that still resonate today. The whole experiment served as a kind of dress rehearsal for Tennessee's eventual statehood, and many former Franklinites played key roles in the new state's government. Their experience with independent governance, even if ultimately unsuccessful, proved invaluable in establishing Tennessee's early political framework. Looking back, the state of Franklin represents something uniquely American, that frontier spirit of, if you don't like how things are going, try to start your own state. While it didn't work out exactly as planned, the story of Franklin gives us a fascinating glimpse into the chaos and possibility of early American history. It reminds us that the neat, orderly United States we know today was once a lot messier and more uncertain. In East Tennessee, people still take pride in this brief moment of independence. And why shouldn't they? The lost state of Franklin might have failed in its bid for statehood, but it succeeded in leaving us with a remarkable story about determination, frontier democracy, and the complex process of building a nation from scratch. It's a reminder that some of the most interesting chapters in American history are the ones that didn't quite make it into the standard textbooks, the almost was moments that could have changed everything. In the shadowy intersection of agriculture and finance, one man cornered an entire market, with onions. This segment peels back the bizarre, almost unbelievable tale of Vincent Kosuga, a savvy trader who manipulated the onion futures market so spectacularly in the 1950s that it triggered chaos, congressional hearings, and the only U.S. ban on trading a specific commodity to this day. What began as a farm-grown hustle spiraled into economic whiplash, and a legacy of deception that still echoes in the annals of market history. Onion futures trading started in the late 1940s on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Their launch was an attempt to replace the lost income from butter futures in the 1930s due to the emergence of federal dairy subsidies. Onion futures contracts became the most traded product on the CME by the mid-1950s, and in 1955, they made up 20% of the exchange's volume. Vincent Kosuga was a New York farmer with a 5,000-acre farm where he grew onions and other vegetables. First, Kosuga got involved in the commodity markets trading wheat but lost all of his capital. He promised his wife he would not trade again but instead got into trading what he knew, onions. Onions were the most traded commodity on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange at the time. This was because onions have limited storability, so their price would fluctuate more than most commodities. The bigger volatility meant a bigger profit potential. Kosuga was friends with Sam Siegel, who also traded onions and had a produce company. They thought that by joining forces, they could corner the market in onion futures. By the fall of 1955, Kosuga and Siegel held 98% of the onions in Chicago, threatening other potential competitors. When the prices drove up, Vincent and Sam bought short positions on large amounts of onion contracts. They used to send the onions away to be cleaned and repackaged to prevent them from spoiling. When the vast shipments returned to Chicago, it gave traders the false impression of extra supply, which caused an artificial price drop. Towards the end of the farming season in March 1956, they flooded the market with onions, causing significant distress to farmers. Prices nosedived from $2.75 to 10 cents per 50 pounds bag. Sam and Vincent made huge profits on their shorts. This trading manipulation disrupted not only the onion market, but also the entire commodity market and the local agroeconomy. Finally, the government, heeding the requests of onion farmers, banned Kosuga from commodities trading. By the fall of 1955, Kosuga and Siegel held 98% of the onions in Chicago, threatening other potential competitors. When the prices drove up, Vincent and Sam bought short positions on large amounts of onion contracts. They used to send the onions away to be cleaned and repackaged to prevent them from spoiling. When the vast shipments returned to Chicago, it gave traders the false impression of extra supply, which caused an artificial price drop. Towards the end of the farming season in March 1956, they flooded the market with onions, causing significant distress to farmers. Prices nosedived from $2.75 to 10 cents per 50 pounds bag. Sam and Vincent made huge profits on their shorts. This trading manipulation disrupted not only the onion market, but also the entire commodity market and the local agroeconomy. Finally, the government, heeding the requests of onion farmers, banned Kosuga from commodities trading. Kosuga and Siegel were brought before the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Kosuga's registration as a floor broker was revoked, and all contract markets were mandated to refuse him trading privileges for 10 months. The Onion Futures case of Vincent Kosuga made the government pass the Onion Futures Act, despite traders' protests. The act states that a. No contract for the sale of onions for future delivery shall be made on or subject to the rules of any Board of Trade in the United States. The terms used in this act shall have the same meaning as when used in the Commodity Exchange Act. B. Any person who shall violate the provisions of this section shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor and upon conviction thereof, be fined not more than $5,000. SEC 2. This act shall take effect 30 days after its enactment. To this day, it is illegal to trade onion futures. The manipulation scheme by Vincent Kosuga impacted onion futures, leading to the passing of the Onion Futures Act of 1958 by the government. This incident showcases the importance of market regulation and the consequences that even individual traders determined to manipulate the market can have. In the Chronicles of Samurai Glory, one chapter remains deliberately dimmed: the fierce, disciplined, and battle-hardened women who fought beside, or in defiance of, men. This final segment sheds light on Japan's Onabugeisha, female warriors whose stories were sharpened by steel and smothered by history. From battlefield brilliance to noble resistance, their legacy was powerful and inconvenient. Now, their blades rise again from beneath centuries of silence. For centuries, the female samurai, or Onabugeisha, have been an integral part of Japanese society. These powerful women were skilled in the art of war and often fought alongside the male samurai in times of conflict. In a country that is primarily known for its male-dominated history, the Onabugeisha offer a fascinating glimpse into the roles women played in Japan's past. The Onabugeisha, literally, female martial person, were a class of noblewomen and members of the warrior class, bushi, in feudal Japan. These women also embodied the traditional practices and philosophies, such as Zen, which have profoundly influenced various aspects of Japanese life, including the warrior class. Trained in both traditional household arts and self-defense, they fought alongside samurai men, illustrating how Zen principles of discipline, focus, and harmony were integral to their roles. During Japan's feudal period, many samurai families found themselves in need of extra protection. As a result, they began training their daughters in the art of war. These women became known as Onabugeisha, the female samurai. While they did not fight as often as their male counterparts, the female samurai were considered just as skilled in battle. But despite their skills and bravery, they are not well known outside of Japan. The female samurai were also not as well known as the male samurai. But they still played a significant role in Japanese history. Their exact origins are unclear, but the first female samurai are thought to have appeared during the Genpei War, 1180 to 1185. This was a time of great upheaval in Japan, as two powerful clans, the Taira and the Minamoto, battled for control of the country. During the Edo period, 1603 to 1867, the female samurai were often responsible for defending their homes and families in the absence of the samurai. Japan enjoyed a period of great peace during that time, but there were still occasional skirmishes between rival clans. In these cases, the female samurai would fight alongside the samurai to defend their homes. They were also active during the Meiji Restoration, 1868 to 1912, a time of great change in Japan. This period saw the end of the samurai class and the rise of modern Japan. During this time, many Onibugeisha became involved in the movement to overthrow the Tokugawa shogunate. While male samurai are celebrated and honored in Japanese society to this day, female samurai are largely overlooked. The role of women in Japan has always been complex and multi-layered, with women occupying a variety of positions in society. However, the stories and accomplishments of Onibugeisha are often left out of the history books. That can lead to their unique contributions being underestimated. But how did this happen? The Meiji Restoration was a time of modernity, industrialization, and westernization that led to the decline in power for the samurai class. Consequently, the legacy of Onibugeisha diminished as well. Westerners have traditionally revised the history of Japan's warring culture to focus primarily on samurai and submissive women in kimonos rather than including the heroic quests of female warriors. According to historian Stephen Turnbull, the stories of female samurai are some of the most remarkable untold tales in samurai history. However, research from recent years has also indicated that Japanese women were not uncommon in battle. Evidence from the Battle of Senbon Matsubaru in 1580 shows that 35 out of 105 bodies discovered were female. In a time when men ruled the battlefield, Onibugeisha fought alongside them as equals. They were highly skilled in the art of combat. While the number of female samurai was relatively small, they were broadly respected for their courage and prowess. They had impressive fighting skills and they've become some of the most feared warriors in all of Japan. The female samurai were not called upon to fight as often as the male samurai. But they still played an important role in combat. Although the majority were from noble or samurai families, some commoners also received training. These women were often responsible for defending their homes while the men were away at war. Nonetheless, in some cases, the Onibugeisha even took part in frontline combat. And they were even known to lead armies of their own. In times of peace, they would often practice their skills by taking part in mock battles. Onibugeisha underwent rigorous training from a young age, and many of them achieved great feats on the battlefield. Trained in the use of a variety of weapons, they were considered to be formidable opponents on the battlefield. Perhaps their most iconic weapon was the naginata, a long pole with a curved blade at the end. This weapon was particularly effective against cavalry, as they could use it to slash at the horse's legs. This was crucial as female samurai were often tasked with protecting the male samurai from such attacks. In addition to the naginata, they were also skilled in the use of the yumi, a Japanese bow. The yumi was a powerful weapon, and the Onibugeisha could use it to great effect in battle. Some were also skilled with dagger-like weapons called kaiken. Female samurai were typically armed with a selection of these weapons, depending on the situation they were facing. Besides that, they were also trained in the use of armor and horseback riding. Though they are often left out of the history books, there were plenty of badass ladies fighting alongside their male counterparts during Japan's feudal period. Some of the most famous Onibugeisha include Nakano Takiko and Tomo Guzan. But there were many more who have been forgotten by history. Empress Jingu was a powerful Japanese ruler who stepped in after her husband's, Emperor Choi, the 14th Emperor of Japan, death to take over his duties in 200 AD. She quickly became revered as the Onibugeisha who took charge and led an invasion of Korea in 200 AD after her husband tragically died in battle. This makes her the first female samurai in Japan and the world. Tomo Guzan was a 12th century noblewoman who served Minamoto no Yashinaka, one of the primary commanders during the Genpei War. She was known for her bravery in battle and her skills with a sword and naginata. For centuries after Tomo Guzan's reign, female samurai flourished and made up a large part of the Japanese samurai class. Female warriors not only protected villages but opened schools that taught martial arts and military strategy to young women across the Japanese Empire. In Japan, there were numerous clans scattered across the land. Everyone had samurai warriors. And all of them were open to the Onibugeisha. Hojo Masako was the wife of the first shogun of the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333, Minamoto no Yoritamo. Not only was she a female samurai, but she also played an essential role in politics. She was the first Anabi geisha to enter politics. After her husband's death, she became a Buddhist nun, as many samurai widows did. But she still kept up her involvement in politics. Not only that, but she also played a key role in shaping the careers of her two sons, Minamoto no Yori and Minamoto no Sanetomo. Both went on to become shogun, with Yori holding the title for 1 year and Sanetomo ruling for 16. Nakano Takiko led a group of samurai women into battle against the forces of the Meiji Empire and died tragically young during the Battle of Aizu at Aizuwakamatsu Castle. She was famed for her prowess with a naginata. Nakano and her fellow Anabi geisha fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned by the enemy. Nakano was mortally wounded in the battle, and she is said to have asked her sister to cut off her head so that it would not fall into enemy hands. The Battle of Aizu is considered the last stand of the Anabi geisha, and Nakano Takiko is widely believed to be one of the greatest female samurai warriors. During the Edo period, the peace and stability brought about by the Tokugawa shogunate meant that there were no major wars for almost 300 years. As a result, the role of the female samurai diminished over time. However, they continued to be revered as symbols of strength and courage. Today, some schools teach the art of Anabi geisha to those interested in learning about Japan's martial heritage. And in more recent times, female samurai have been featured in popular media, such as cinema and manga. These depictions often emphasize the Anabi geisha's strength, courage, and determination. Though they are no longer needed for battle, the spirit of the Anabi geisha lives on in contemporary Japanese culture. The female samurai continue to be a source of inspiration for many young women today. Apart from that, female samurai have lately been increasingly celebrated and honored in Japan. In 2008, the Japanese government posthumously recognized Nakano Takiko with the Order of the Precious Crown, an award given to individuals who have made outstanding contributions to society. This is a fitting tribute to the bravery and dedication of female samurai throughout Japanese history. In 2017, the Japanese government officially designated 5 female samurai as important cultural assets. The 5 women chosen were Tomo Guzan, Nakano Takiko, Hojo Masako, Yamakawa Takiko, and Nakano Shige. Besides that, there are memorials and statues dedicated to these brave women that commemorate their courage and commitment. There is a statue of Tomo Guzan in the city of Kamakura to honor her legacy, and a museum dedicated to female samurai in Seiki City, Gifu Prefecture. This museum contains artifacts from female samurai warriors and displays detailing their history and contributions to Japan. Nowadays, female samurai are celebrated as brave heroines who helped shape Japan's feudal period. Their story is one of strength and resilience, and it serves as an inspiring reminder that women have always been capable of great things. The Anabi geisha offer us a glimpse into an ancient time when women were already just as capable as men of being brave and skilled warriors. In a time when women are still fighting for equality, the story of the female samurai is an inspiring reminder that women are capable of great things. And the fact that women in ancient Japan could have a high social standing shows us how far we still have to go in terms of achieving gender equality. These women also remind us that loyalty, strength, and bravery are not qualities exclusive to men. It is also crucial to highlight that history is often revisioned and biased, depending on who is writing it. For example, many people believe that women in Japan were all submissive women in kimonos when this could not be further from the truth. And there is so much we can learn from these stories if they were just told accurately. We shouldn't blindly follow everything we read. It is essential to do our own research and come to our own conclusions. The legacy of female samurai teaches us that we all can rise above any challenge and that women have always been capable of outstanding accomplishments. And so concludes The Cold, the Crooked, and the Concealed, a glimpse into the fractured past where ice bit deep, ambition twisted truth, and warriors vanished beneath history's veil. But these weren't isolated echoes, their patterns, shadows that stretch forward. More cryptic legacies await. More truths lie buried. Until next time, stay curious, stay wary, and never trust the quiet in the storm. The crypt is always listening.
And so, our descent comes to a pause. But remember, the crypt holds secrets yet unspoken, a forgotten chronicle awaits, one that will twist our understanding of history even further. I am the Decay Echo, and until our next journey, let the whispers of the past guide you deeper into the shadows.